I was there when the ancient texts were written. I remember as Windows 8 came along, and it was full of telemetry. Then Windows 10 happened, and it got even worse. I remember the outrage from the techie users as Windows made it harder and harder to disable. And then, sometimes updates would revert all of the changes you made and bring back all of the telemetry. But the normal people never cared. And now with Windows 11, they have taken it to a whole nother level, implementing something which, if anything else on your system did, there would be no argument. This is objectively just spyware. That being a feature called recall. And if you're a mainstream tech outlet, recall is really cool. With recall, Microsoft is using AI to fix Windows' eternally broken search. Recall is Microsoft's key to unlocking the future of PCs. Wow, look, it's the new shiny thing the marketing team is telling you about. But if you think about this system for more than, I don't know, half a second, maybe I'll give you a second or two, you realize just how crazy of an idea this is. If you are somehow unaware of what this is, let me just explain how it works and then we'll get into my take. So the basic idea is as you are using Windows, it will take screenshots of everything you are doing. This data will then be parsed through an AI system, whatever AI is supposed to mean anymore, and then you can keyword search on any element that may have been in those images. Now, there was an interview with Satya Nadella done by the Wall Street Journal. In this example, the person doing the interview searched for brown leather bag. Now, in the screenshot given, there was no text saying brown leather bag. It was taking that prompt phrase and finding anything in the images that matched that phrase. It can be an image, it can be a website, it can be text, it can be anything in those images. Removing the Microsoft aspect for just a moment, on a purely technical, functional basis, this is really cool tech. And if this was open source, if this could be externally audited, and we could be absolutely certain that this is safe, and this is doing exactly what they say it is doing, this is something I would love to use. But I certainly cannot trust it coming from Microsoft. The very first thing a lot of people are thinking of are the privacy implications here, because they're pretty bad. This is effectively spying on everything and everywhere you go on your computer. Every single action you take is going to be recorded in this system. Now, there are some very important caveats that I feel like a lot of people either don't know about or just aren't including with their takes. It's still bad, but the caveats are important. Let's just assume a system that is working correctly, and this system isn't buggy. There's going to be a bug that appears at some point in the future, but let's just assume right now it works fine. You can tell Recall to not include certain applications and certain websites in the dataset. This is assuming that you know to tell it not to look at certain things, because by default, it is going to collect everything. Well, not everything. There is one very specific category they make sure is not being collected, and it has nothing to do with your privacy. Here is the FAQ for the Copilot Plus features. Copilot Plus being basically Windows computers that have a special AI processing chip in them, basically. There is a section called What Privacy Controls Does Recall Offer? Now, that's very important here. We'll get to the rest of it in a moment, but this part right here, Recall does not take screenshots of certain kind of content. That sounds pretty good. Including in private web browsing sessions in Microsoft Edge, so if using a private browser session, okay, fair enough, but only on Edge. Not if you're using Chrome, not if you're using Firefox, nothing else, only specifically Edge. Obviously, because they want to direct people to Edge. But this is the better part. It treats material protected with digital rights management, DRM, similarly. Like other Windows apps such as Snipping Tool, Recall does not store DRM content. Oh, how great. You're not going to store screenshots of Netflix. Wow. Thank you. That's so important to my privacy. But obviously this means that Microsoft is going to give the same level of care to my private sensitive data. Surely. Note that Recall does not perform content moderation. It will not hide information such as passwords or financial account numbers. That data may be in snapshots that are stored on your device, especially when sites do not follow standard internet protocols like cloaking password entry. So, you know how a lot of modern websites have that little toggle to temporarily unmask your password? Oops, your password is now effectively stored in plain text in this database, searchable through your history. Now, to be fair to Microsoft, the data is all going to be handled locally. It's all going to be stored just on your system. For now, and screenshot data is going to be encrypted. But who wants to take bets on whether or not Microsoft is going to add a collect anonymized training data toggle, and maybe the toggle will begin turned off and it will be opt-in. But who wants to take bets that that toggle at some point in the future is going to swap from opt-in to opt-out? Surely Microsoft would never do that. They don't have a history of changing the way their telemetry is done, their data collection is done, to make it so it's opt-out instead of opt-in. They have never, ever, ever collected user data without the user knowing about it. I hope you know your history. And who wants to take bets on some 3-letter agency going to Microsoft and saying, hey, Microsoft, give us the data. And Microsoft going, here you go, 3-letter agency. Am I completely certain that this is going to happen? No, but I'm also not certain the sun is going to rise tomorrow, but it seems like it does every day. Just for the sake of a thought experiment, let's give Microsoft the benefit of the doubt. Let's pretend for a moment that Microsoft is never ever going to collect this data, and no 3-letter government agency is going to go to Microsoft demanding that data. Let's just pretend like this is never going to happen. Just humor me for a few moments here. Even then, this data is not something you want to have collected on your system. I did say the tech was cool, and I did say I might want to use it, but I would want to be very, very specific with how I use it, because local data and encryption only matter if you don't have access to the search prompt. Let's imagine for a second some novel malware, actual malware, not what Microsoft has developed here. Let's imagine that this malware's goal is to access the search prompt to look back through your recall data history, and its goal is to find sensitive data, things like passwords, financial data, maybe it just exists to collect marketing data, for example. Who cares if Microsoft doesn't collect the data? They have just created a massive attack vector, and you cannot tell me there will never be malware that targets recall. But maybe it's not even malware. Maybe it's someone with physical access to the machine. Maybe it's a disgruntled employee looking back through their boss's history to find some sort of dirt on them. Maybe you have a psycho partner that is looking back through every little thing you're doing because you spoke to someone and they think you might possibly be cheating on them, and now they have another vector to be absolutely psycho with. These are just the very first things that come to my mind. I'm sure there are countless others, so let me know some other fun situations down in the comment section below. But let's move away from privacy. Let's talk about an encrypted chat application, for example. You can say to Recall, don't include screenshots of a specific app. But by default, it's going to. And if you forget to block a certain app, or you do an update, and it wipes out the list of blocked apps, which has certainly happened in the past, you've effectively broken end-to-end encryption, because now there is basically plain text of all of your chats included in this search. And there is another angle that is not really being discussed here. Let's say that you sign an NDA. You're working on some top secret contract. Maybe there's like hundreds of millions of dollars on the line here. Maybe it's something a bit smaller. Maybe you just signed an NDA to work on a video game, for example. This data somehow gets leaked, whether it's from malware, someone going back through your search history, and you just don't block the relevant applications. You now have to argue that the screenshot that is clearly from your machine wasn't leaked by you. Now, you could make the argument, oh, my machine was hacked. Oh, there was malware on my machine. But you have to make that argument, and the person you're making that argument to has to believe it. And if there is a lot of money on the line, making sure that data doesn't get leaked about whatever you're doing, you could be in serious trouble for that. You cannot have recall ever running if you're doing any work like this. And I do not trust Microsoft to keep it disabled if you turn it off. I would love to say that this is going to cause a giant influx of people suddenly trying out Linux. And I'm sure there are going to be some very technical people that go and do so. I have seen some people saying, oh, now is the time to try Linux. I'm going to swap over. I'm going to give it a shot. And that's awesome. If there has ever been a time that you wanted to try Linux, if you have any sense of privacy left, even just the very slightest bit, try out Linux. If you need Windows for a subset of applications, hop onto YouTube, learn how a virtual machine works, and run Windows in the virtual machine. But I do not think that Windows should be your main operating system anymore. But nothing is going to change. I know nothing is going to change because nothing ever changes. So let me know your thoughts down below. Do you have any friends who are now considering trying out Linux? Maybe. I don't know. Do you have any people that you've possibly convinced? I would love to know. So if you liked the video, go like the video. And if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon subscribes to Pay linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and here's to people actually giving Linux a shot finally.
Something like this.